Evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of Council, Tuesday, April 11th, 2023. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Inkakatma and the Syilx people. Late items, we have one. I will direct your attention to late items. 2.1, Airport Advisory and Age-Friendly Committee. Recommendation that the attached item be added to the agenda as the last item in the unfinished business.
I'll move that.
Councillor Newman, Councillor, yeah, sure. Thank you. Okay, so. We move on to that right now? Oh, sorry. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Carried. So we move into that right now? Last item, okay.
So item 7.2.
So 7.2, that council approve the age-friendly and accessibility, oh, sorry, what?
7.1 is the search and rescue.
Okay.
And then you'll do it after that.
Oh, okay, 7.1 after the search and rescue. Oh, okay, my mistake. I'm not reading that correctly, so we'll put that after unfinished mission. Okay. My mistake, everyone. There was a change at the last minute here, so. Public input, do we have any? Okay, thank you. Adoption of minutes, 4.1, regular council meeting minutes, March 28th, 2023. That the minutes of the regular council meeting be held on March 28th, 2023 be adopted. Councillor Egan, Councillor Petrozzi, any errors or omissions? Did we all read it? I didn't find any. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. No public hearing. General meetings and delegations. We are on to unfinished business, 7.1. Search and rescue lease. This was from the last meeting. There's a little bit of a blurb there for you. Recommendation that the mayor and corporate officer be instructed to enter into a lease with the Nicola Valley Search and Rescue as attached to this item. I need a mover. Councillor Newman. Councillor Egan. Questions? Councillor Newman.
I'm just curious in the publications if there was any responses from anybody else in the public in regards to the lease space.
There were not.
Okay. Any other questions? A enjoyable group to have in, and we all went to their celebrations and everything, so it was nice to see. 20 years. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the late item. That council approve the Age-Friendly and Accessibility Advisory Committee, and that council approve the Airport Advisory Committee terms of reference. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Ogan, Councillor Charney. Questions? What?
Sorry.
I don't know what that means.
Okay.
It was a late agenda. Are you okay, Councillor Egan, or do you have something? All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you very much. Put that over here. Thank you. New business, 2022-2023 snow clearing program. Ms. Brick, you are up.
Thank you, Your Worship. We also have Amanda Preisner-Dunn from Better at Homes, who is available to do a presentation for us.
Excellent.
On the Nicola Valley Better at Home Interior Community Services portion of the snow clearing program, and I can speak to the City of Merritt snow clearing portion of the program, as it's two separate pieces that are run concurrently as one program.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, did you want to do a presentation? Sure.
Thank you.
Am I good to talk?
Could you introduce yourself one more time for us, please?
Sure. My name is Amanda Preisner-Dunn,
Thank you very much.
and I'm the program coordinator for Better at Home Nicola Valley. Before I review the figures that from the previous snow season, I wanted to just provide some background information on the program, just in case members are not clear on what Better at Home is. It is a program designed to provide non-medical supports for seniors and to help them to remain living independently in their own homes. While the services provided vary from community to community, and Merritt, we offer housekeeping, yard maintenance, and snow removal. It is a United Way Healthy Aging program and is hosted locally by my agency, which is Interior Community Services. Funding is provided by the provincial government, and United Way administers the funding to us. The services we provide in Merritt are subsidized, so this means each senior is assigned a subsidy category based on their income. This kind of category determines what, if any, costs are applicable for the service that the senior receives. Originally, the snow clearing program was designed to be delivered as a subsidized service for seniors. During the first year that Better at Home came in existence in Merritt, I had the opportunity to attend the Age-Friendly Accessibility Committee, and there it was decided that a partnership would be created between the city and Interior Community Services to offer the snow service as a free program. Which included some funding from the city to cover costs. So again, just the most recent winter season, I have provided some figures that are related to the service and created a bit of a forecast. Is that, do we have the other, yeah. And a bit of a forecast of what funding it will take to continue to run the program again this year. Last year, so we covered November, December, January, and February. The original intention was to also include March. Because our funding was running short, we actually made the decision to end the program at the end of February. So you can see there's a breakdown of costs per month to run it, with the total being just over $27,000. We delivered 624 snow clearing services over 13 snow events. Our contractors that we employ are High Mountain Ventures, and they delivered service to 50 seniors last winter. And there's also a breakdown of the funding or contributions. So the City of Merritt provided $7,000 towards the cost of service, and then our budget from United Way program funds covered the rest. Going forward, we recently reviewed our budget for this program for the upcoming season, and we are on a much stricter budget of $7,000 for this program. So I've provided some options to keep the service running if it is the city's decision to continue some type of partnership to provide this program. So there's various options around, dependent on our total amount of funding that we can use. So it really needs to be tailored based on if any contribution is made, what we can afford to achieve. So that might mean reducing the number of participants that we serve on the program, that we could look at attaching a fee per visit amount per service. We could limit the service to only do sidewalks and pathways. We could look at considering fundraising or collecting donations or reverting it back to a subsidy-based program. So the second document that I did include was just to give you an idea. It's our current service user agreement. So there you have the subsidy categories per level. And at the top end, if a senior comes to us and is not entitled to any subsidy, the full cost would be $48 a visit per clearing of sidewalks, pathways, and their driveway. And so that is essentially what we are paying for per visit. If we revert it to a subsidy-based program, that is what the client on that sliding scale would pay somewhere around those costs, so dependent on their income level. So it is an option to revert it to a subsidy-based program. But as you can see, if it's quite an eventful snow season, it can be quite difficult for seniors to afford to have that as a regular service. So for example, in December, they provided 9 clearings. So you just have to multiply the subsidy category by 9, and yeah. So essentially, we're just in the beginning stages of trying to develop a bit of criteria for the program going forward, and thought it'd be a good opportunity to discuss if the city would like to partner again and what that might look like.
Thank you very much. This will be going to budget. We have this as a budget item, but questions, Councillor Echard.
Hi, Renda. Thanks for being here. if we were to have the same amount, it's looking like it's not enough, but is it likely of receiving the same funding from United Way again, or?
No, so for this year, we recently had our budget meeting, and it looks like for the snow, there is an allocation of $7,000, so far less than the $20,000 we were able to apply this year.
So if the city went with their total, it'd be 14,000 total.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I've sort of given a few different options. If we were to run the service, free for, let's say, 25 participants, then we probably could do that with our combined contributions together. That's also contingent on the contractor wanting the contract with 25 participants instead of 50.
Yeah, and it really depends. And last year, what was your feedback? Because I know anybody that I talked to was happy to be on it and grateful to have it. And I think that some people sometimes expect, if they can't do it, that they may pay something. So the reduced fee was nice, but I think it filled up quite quickly.
Yes, yeah. I believe it was by early November it was full with the 50. And that was in discussions with the contractor as well, because we had to make sure that they were still able to provide good service for those 50. We didn't want to sort of push the contractor more than he could really handle, and that was in agreement with their business as well.
Thank you.
And definitely the feedback I had was very positive. It does make a very important impact for seniors to have that service.
Yeah.
And it's just a relief for them to not have to worry about it during the winter.
Well, it's nice with co-branding too. It's like the city supporting something and, agencies working together. I think it's really positive, especially. Thank you.
Yep. Welcome.
Councillor Charney.
Hi, Amanda. I think this is a very valuable program. But if you move to a subsidy program, would you be able to have more than 50 people that you could clear sidewalks for? Will that affect the contractor?
It'd be based on whether, yes, if the contractor could service more than 50, but also we would have to look at how many people of each subsidy were included in the program. And because if we have, let's say, the vast majority are Category B clients, then our funding goes a little bit shorter, right? Mm-hmm. Because we are then paying the majority of that cost, and the client is paying the 70% or 30% portion. So it really depends. It would be something that it's sort of what I'm doing right now for our yard maintenance service, which is taking a look every time we take on a new participant, what our month-to-month costs look like. It's a trickier with snow because you never really know how much you're planning for. This past season was quite a bit more than we've considered, based on the previous year as well. So I have sort of forecasted based on at least the 13 snow events happening.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Newman.
Thank you very much. I know a lot about the Better at Home program, and it's very welcomed by our residents for sure. One question is, have you looked out to any other sources for additional funding?
We haven't before, and that's something that we're in discussions with this year, definitely. I think that we're trying to look everywhere we can because we want to keep this service running for as many people as possible. So we've discussed possibilities around fundraising, around doing sort of donation drives, things like that, because I think we're still relatively new in the community, and many people don't know that we're here and that they can donate, that we are a nonprofit. So the word's getting out a little bit more, but certainly we'd like to focus a bit more attention on that this year.
And one other question was, I see out of all of these projections on which choices we could take, you don't have one listed if we were to do 100% funding, for 100% of the clients. So I'm seeing if there's 50 clients, you've got one number, but if we were to take on the whole 68, is there a dollar figure attached to that?
if you were wanting to contribute,
So that, well, you said you had 50 clients that were done this year, but there were
Yeah.
18, pardon me, on a wait list. So if we were to take on, if you were able to get funding for that whole amount, what it would look like?
yeah, it's certainly possible. Again, it would be in discussions with our current contractor. And yeah, I think that we would definitely want to take on as many people as possible. So we would just run the figures and see I haven't forecasted for that because I always just thought we would be sort of based on our budget for Mandated Way as well as being kind of our maximum, but we can certainly look at it.
I think that in previous years, again, that might not be the case for future years, there was a maximum contractor capacity, so it wasn't so much being throttled by funds previously. It was really, I don't think that they could take on a lot more than the 50. So we would either need to be looking to multiple contractors or expanding capacity of the existing. So that really was the challenge in prior years, whether that would hold true this year or not.
Councillor Egan, can I get you to push your button again?
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate all this information, and I just have a couple of questions. Is the contractor local?
Yes, it's High Mountain.
I'll get you to push your button. Thank you.
Yeah, it is High Mountain Ventures.
Okay, and the other question is, what are the qualifications for people to actually apply? Do they have to be 65 and up? Or do they have to have certain disabilities or ailments?
Yeah, the only criteria really is to be 65 or over.
Oh, good, I could apply. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So there are actually two parts to this program. There is the Better at Home portion, which services residents who are over 65. What we also have is a city portion where we service residents who are under 65 but who are disabled, own their own homes, and have qualified for the homeowner grant for disabilities in that year. So that's the other portion of this as well as, and we had 3 residents who fit into that category this year, and we provided 22 service calls for them. The funding for that portion, all except for $210 came from the money that we had set aside from the original grant, because we had $10,000 originally. $7,000 of that went to Better at Home. The other $3,000 went for this portion, and that was actually able to carry over for 2 years for this program.
Councillor Newman.
And just a question of staff, would this not qualify under a grant and aid program as well for funding?
CEO Smith. Oh, I got too many microphones going here, sorry. There we go.
Whether it's as well or in addition to, I would probably leave to council's interpretation. There are maximums under the grant and aid program of $7,500, and so generally speaking, this ended up not flowing through because really 2 years ago it was a pilot. Last year it was hit stride, but we didn't have the same amount of funding for it, and so this is the first year where I think there kind of really is no extra funding for this. So what the model looks like on a go-forward basis is up to council. If you wanted this to be a kind of a standing grant and aid application, it could be. It's just acknowledging the limitations of that program and being a $7,500 cap. If it's outside of that in a budget line item, you could do more, less, and have a bit more flexibility. So it's up to you. I think it totally could be grant and aid if that was how you wanted to see it move.
Councillor Egan.
Oh, sorry.
I had to kill the mics again, so Councillor Petrozzi.
What are your thoughts of just limiting the service to sidewalks and pathways? Do you have a breakdown of how many needed their driveways cleared?
Yes, so the breakdown was 39 participants needed driveways out of the 50 that we did. So it was certainly more highly requested than the other.
And that included probably their vehicles also cleaning, no, just driveway, not cleaning the vehicles. And
they would do around the vehicles, but not clear the vehicles themselves.
Okay. So 39 needed the driveway. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Because I had to kill the mics. Councillor Hogan.
Okay. Just for clarification, so you mentioned two programs. So Better at Home program that was run, they use as a contractor to provide the service. And the other part from the city, it was based on volunteers, correct?
No, it was the same contractor that we used. We initially, when we first ran the program in 2019 and 2020, there was a real challenge to find volunteers. Part of the program for being a volunteer is that you have to go through a police criminal record check. We had, I think, 2 volunteers at that point. And so it was a real challenge, which is why when the opportunity for this funding came forward and the partnership with Better at Home, it was seen as a great opportunity to be able to service the community, introduce the community to Better at Home, who was just coming into the community, and to provide this service to our residents. And we found a way to be able to service everybody in both demographics in a great way. But it was definitely done through the same contractor.
Hold on a second. I got to kill your mic, Councilor Egan. Go ahead, Councilor Hogan.
Yeah, my last question, Amanda. So I was just wondering if there is an opportunity to explore a different approach here by reducing the cost and providing additional services. I know that there are groups in the community, such as the Endeavor to Be Better, that they would be happy to have this funding and also be able to deliver some services, similar service of that. So I was just wondering that could be an option.
When we initially decided to add snow removal to our basket of services, it was explored that we look at using volunteers or other type of organizations. It gets a little difficult in terms of ensuring that the appropriate level of liability insurance is there, especially, and our organization or agency tried very hard to see if we could go down the volunteer route, but for that reason, it just wasn't a viable option for us. But I haven't, explored sort of contracting it to another nonprofit to see what that might look like. It may still be a challenge, that insurance piece.
So I remind council that this is on our budget, so we will be wrestling with this at budget time.
I do just want to give council a bit of a highlight, because we've done a few different staff reports on this in the past, but it might be new for some on council. There are different models that other communities run as well that are less intensive in the scheduling and the planning for it. So the challenge is if the city is going to lead something or Better at Home is going to lead something, they have to make sure that we follow all of the regulations around it, which includes the vulnerable sector criminal records check, which depending on circumstances may or may not be challenging in some sectors. If you're trying to reach out to Endeavor to Be Better, don't know, but that might present a bit more of a challenge. There are as well the liability concerns and insurance. What other communities have done to get around that, if you will, is if the city's not the one coordinating it, and what we're doing is saying, hey, if you are needing this service, put your name on some registry. If you can help this person, get in touch with a neighbor and work something out. Those have been set up in other places. Because it's not us doing it. You're just calling a friendly neighbor in the community and setting something up. Challenge is if something happens, you never quite get to wash your hands of that. And things have happened in other communities where it is unfortunate, and whether it's theft or verbal abuse or things that have come up. Don't want to minimize that at all. There's also been programs that have been even lower kind of level of intensity, where if the public works crews or the bylaw officers cruising around and they see people being good Samaritans out shoveling a neighbor's driveway, they'll pop out, give them a toque and snap a picture. Hey, thank you for being a good neighbor. Give a shout out for that. There's also been things that are, if you want to nominate, a snow angel in your community or give them a shout out, get in touch with the city communication team and we can do that. And so there's various levels of which to do it. The hard part is that all the other ones don't provide the level of certainty for seniors that I need my home or my walk shoveled. And so that's really what this program did provide, and we think that there's a lot of value in it. just haven't been able to get it consistently grant funded past that first year.
Councillor Charney.
A couple of weeks ago, Councillor Egan mentioned like a snow watch, like a block watch. You know, that's something that maybe we could look into also, so that each community has people that are willing to help out their little community. So that's something we could look into.
Councillor Newman.
I'm just curious if the United Way stated why there was such a reduction in funding this year.
I am not maybe privy to the breakdown and how that works. My manager and our CEO sort of handle the application budgets, and I will say that normally it is a 2-year letter of agreement. This year it is 1 year, and that might have made a difference. There's a few other factors as well that have adjusted the recent let's say the union agreement that recently came about, the BCGEU, that's affected the cost of wages, and so more of our budget then is going towards that instead of services. So the funding did not account for that particular agreement to happen. So there's other parts in motion with it. And then we do offer 2 other services as well. So it's trying to balance a little bit for each of the services to see.
Councillor Egan.
Thank you. It says here in 2022, council approved funding for a partnership with Interior Community Services to provide the program for resident seniors in the amount of $7,000 funded from council contingency. So my question here is more about where is actually the money coming from to fund this at the current moment? And under which department in the city, because it didn't come up in grant and aids or other kinds of things this year, which we've already delegated funds to. So that's my curiosity.
CEO Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the answer in short is that you will determine that at the budget table. It's one of the operating line requests. Ultimately, it's going to come likely from general surplus, but it'll be an operating request that you would consider as part of budget.
So you're not sure that it should have been a grant and aid at the time, or is this something that we should consider as an operating cost in the future?
Again, I think that to Councillor Newman's question earlier, this probably could be a grant and aid, but noting that the $10,000 amount is higher than what the maximum permitted amount is in the grant and aid. So whether you want to carry this as a line item in the budget, as a regularly recurring item, or whether you want this to be a grant and aid request, noting that in general, grant and aid is not usually supposed to be providing ongoing support to organizations for continued maintenance of programs. It's not usually the intent, but has it been used that way for a lot of years? Historically, yes. Is that maybe the best practice? I don't think that's what the policy says, and one of the things that you guys have asked for is before we come back to grant and aid next time, that you would review that policy. So I think you will have ample opportunity to decide whether you want that to be a line item or to be a regularized grant and aid request. But I can say that for this year, seeing as it wasn't a grant and aid request, it would be dealt with through budget.
So just to echo, if we do put this in as a grant and aid, we actually take money out of that some other groups maybe, depending on, but will be left off the list. Anyway, any other questions?
Can I
Yes.
Can I just add a little bit of clarity in regards to the question about why the United Way funding is so low? Just to clarify, our previous budget, a previous year, we had to take from the other service budgets to cover the $20,000. So it wasn't that United Way had provided us with $20,000 for snow removal. They provided us with around $9,000, and then we had to shuffle things around to make it work and cover those costs. So from their perspective, I guess they see it as not that much of a decrease in funding for the snow in particular, but just as an overall contracted costs. We do have one service that is not seasonal, that's a year-round thing and does and does sort of draw more from our pot than the rest. So we're just trying to keep it, aligned with being able to apply the three services throughout the year.
Thank you, Amanda. Any other questions? So we have this, received the March 29, 2023 report from the Deputy Corporate Officer entitled 2022-2023 Snow Clearing Program for Information. And I got a motion on that? Councillor Bertozzi, Councillor Egan. All those in favor? Opposed? And I would suggest you put this with put it in your budget binder, because we're going to be dealing with that there. So thank you, Amanda. Thank you for and thanks United Way for actually throwing that amount in to help out. So it does come in handy for older folks. So thank you very much. I'll just get you to kill your mic there if you don't mind. Thank you very much. You don't? Oh, well, that's your problem. We'll get you one. Stat. Printed copy for Councillor Newman. Immediately. Yeah, stat.
We're good.
9.2, appointment of approving officer, to be introduced by Ms. McCrae-Williams. Lacey.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I think the CAO is really happy to see this hit the agenda today. Also, long time no see, so good to see you again. As the staff report states here, as well as the staff report that was attached from, I believe, August 23rd, 2022, Sean, the CAO, was appointed the approving officer in the interim until the Director of Planning and Development Services was acquired with the city. The original intent was for me to attend the MADI training, which is essentially approving officer training in November of 2022, about 2 months after I began in this role. Unfortunately, due to capacity, they had to postpone. It was then going to be in April, which I was on the list for, and then they actually had to postpone again for capacity. So it is now in their regular time in the fall again of this year. So I think sometime November 2023. I am pre-registered for that training. Just so you're aware, that is not a requirement to fulfill the approving officer role. But it is under the Land Title Act, the city is required to have a municipal approving officer to address matters related to subdivision of land. The approving officer is appointed by council with responsibilities to independently apply provincial statutes and local bylaws regarding subdivision. The person in this role, like myself, uses their independent discretion in making those decisions about subdivision approval. And this position is a statutory official with separate and independent jurisdiction from council. I've highlighted the section of the act here. Thank you, Greg, for that. And attached the old council report. So any questions, comments? Thank you.
Council, any questions? Councillor Charney.
Lacey, I just wanted some confirmation on that independent discretion in making decisions about subdivision approval. This position is a statutory official with separate and independent jurisdiction from council. So if I read this correctly, you can make decisions with regard to rezoning without approaching council? Sean's shaking his head no.
Do you want to go answer? So rezoning and subdivision are two very different things. So a subdivision application can come in the permitted zone that already exists. All OCP amendments and rezoning applications are still a council process. Subdivision is a layer that goes beyond, I guess, a development permit application, where it's not necessarily one building, but it's a series of buildings, as well as subdividing, a greenfield parcel, but the rezoning and OCP process would come through to council. The subdivision is handled by the approving officer.
CEO Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Charney. I'll just add a bit more color as well. So subdivisions are about the only land-related item that is not a council process. The reason for that is that subdivision is a combination of a few different things. One of them is every municipal bylaw and directive that you currently have on the books that flows through to the subdivision. So we have to make sure that lot sizes, all of the things that are set out in the zoning bylaw are going to be adequate, or sorry, in the zoning bylaw are found in that subdivision. So that's a test to make sure that we hit all of the municipal functions. Then there's a bunch of health safety components to this. So your geotechnical, your fire, all of those components. And then there's a whole bunch of, I'd say it's much more infrastructure related. And so subdivision ends up being sort of a dual thing where Lacey will work fairly closely with Rick on almost every one of these to make sure that we have suitable infrastructure built out for not just, water, sewer, storm. It's also going to incorporate things like sidewalks and streetlights and all of that as set out in our subdivision servicing bylaw. So it's really the only process that council doesn't have direct authority or supervision over as set out in the Land Title Act. So if they want to rezone or do anything different with that, it comes right back to you.
Any other questions? And I think it's cleaner for it to land where it's landing right now. It's a little discombobulated, so no more questions. So the recommendation on the table is that council appoint Lacey McCray Williams, Director of Planning and Development Services, as the municipal approving officer for the city of Merritt, pursuant to section 77 of the Land Title Act.
Second.
Councillor Etchart, Councillor Newman. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none?
I was in favor.
And
I want to give a giant shout out. Thank you for doing this. This is a fair bit of work, particularly because it always requires me to get up to speed with every one of the files before we end up with pen and paper. So thank you.
I have to be honest, the opposed hand that went up was quite delayed, so it looked like you're opposing it, so mark that down, opposed.
Because I was trying to be comedically funny.
Nice try. 9.3, BC Transit Annual Operating Agreement to be introduced by Mr. Thompson. And you are on.
Thank you. The annual operating agreement is very similar to what we had last year with a few increased costs in it. As you've approved throughout the year, we added a fourth bus and we've added a few more stops to our routes. So the costs have gone up. I think we were roughly $250,000 last year, and this year the annual operating agreement is for $300,000. The agreement is always done for 1 year. It looks after the city of Merritt and electoral area M for the TNRD. And so the budget will include the $300,000 for the transit, which is our portion of the costs. And as you heard from Danica White last week, it's subsidized by the province, and we don't pay full costs, but we do pay our portion of it. All the revenue that comes in comes directly off of our costs, so it helps us reduce those. The agreement is attached. Hopefully you've read it, and you can ask any questions.
Councillor
Charney.
Sorry, Councillor Charney.
So on this one page here, it says the total revenue for the year is $89,000. So that's what they collect in transit fees for the year.
Yep.
But the total cost of running the program is $730,569.
Yes.
That's quite a loss. I can figure that one out. So it comes to a loss of $336,401. Who is paying that?
Province.
The province is paying that. Are they going to look at Merritt at one time or another and say, this is just not a viable program, or do they absorb money from areas that are having a large increase in?
No, they expect to subsidize most municipalities that have transit in the province.
Okay. Because it looks like they bring in approximately $250 a day, which is about 125 people per day using the transit. Maybe we as a council have to start encouraging people to use the transit system more.
Actually, this transit system in Merritt is probably the most used. We're constantly used as the bellwether at UBCM and how successful this program actually is here.
But still running a huge deficit.
It's just the nature of the beast. You imagine what Vancouver pays?
No, I wouldn't want to.
Councillor Egan.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just gathering my thoughts here. As far as the transportation goes, I'm just wondering how much our routes were actually changed or diverted during COVID and during the floods, and how much that actually impacted the fees and charges.
I'll have to ask the CAO to answer that.
CEO Smith.
So I'm trying to remember exactly who was at the last BC Transit presentation, so I don't apologize if I'm going over anything. Routes being diverted didn't happen so much as ridership going massively down. Of course, there was a period of time, like everything else, where routes weren't running, but that was not particularly long. This is the BC average number, so they're not showing Merritt ridership here, but there was some Merritt ridership numbers at the the last committee of the whole meeting. We have come back to the point where she thinks we are close. She said, don't trust this figure here. There's some inaccurate statistics with that. Our revenues are almost up to where they were before, and seeing as we haven't changed the fares, that very likely means that the ridership is close to pre-COVID levels, but there was a pretty substantial dump, whether it was 60%, 70%, I don't have an exact figure for you. Where the routes are likely going to change and get tweaks is as a result of the service review that they intend to start this upcoming year. So.
Okay, so my
Hold on a sec, Councillor Egan, I gotta kill your mic. Yeah, you're good now.
Okay, sorry, thank you. I also wanted to know how this affected the employment of the drivers and how that may have affected revenue expenses.
I would say that that's probably some information that we could get. I don't have it offhand, since it's not, we get our information pretty third hand because we get it through BC Transit, which the drivers are hired by the society, and so we can probably get those figures, and I might even look to Wendy to raise that at the next meeting, but I don't have the information offhand unless you do, Norm.
Okay, well, thank you very much, but I was just wondering because when we did listen to the person from BC Transit, they were doing all kinds of projections, expenses and ridership and that kind of thing, but it really didn't show us how much money we spent when there was no ridership.
But then again, being subsidized by the province.
It still would be good information to know because we still have a contribution to make.
Oh, yeah, that would have been for the lady to answer when she was here. Councillor Petrosi.
Has there been a discussion to increase fares? And how do we compare, say, to similar communities?
Likely the fare increase discussion is going to be part of that service review that happens here. I don't want to jinx anything, but I suspect that fare increase discussions are probably going to be on the table for that.
One of the things that the province subsidizes is the 12 and under ride free. And so that's a provincial subsidy that they do for all the municipalities. And so they carry on that program, trying to keep the fees at a low so that ridership increases is what they're after. If you start raising them too much, you're going to lose that ridership. So it's a balancing act that they do province-wide. But when we go through the next order of business, we'll talk about the strategic plan and where we're going to go with that over the next 5 years.
Any other questions? Recommendation that council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to sign the 2023-2024 annual operating agreement with BC Transit. Councillor Rogan, Councillor Etchart. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 9.4 Transit Future Service Plan to be introduced by Mr. Thompson yet again.
You have in front of you the transit strategic plan for the next 5 years and what they want to do to consult with residents, the stakeholders, and talk about developing the transit future service plan for the next 5 years. The last transit plan for the city of Merritt was developed in 2016, and transit likes to visit these every 5 to 7 years, so we're well due to have our public consultation and develop a new transit plan, which will also fit in with the OCP that was approved last year. And so staff will work with BC Transit to integrate the official community plan and work with the stakeholders, clients, and riders to discuss the future needs of the community. And as BC Transit presented to the committee of the whole on April the 4th, this is a continuation of that conversation.
Any questions that we didn't ask on the 4th? So we have a recommendation on the floor. Recommendation that council approve BC Transit to work with the city of Merritt and staff to finalize the project terms of reference. Councillor Rogan, Councillor Petrosi. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Notice of motion. None. Reports from council. Councillor Petrosi.
Yeah, I guess April 1st, I guess all of us attended the Newcomers Tea at the library. So met a lot of good people there and enjoyed the coffee there. And attended Coffee with a Cop Wednesday, April 5th, and talking with Marlene in depth about the homeless situation in town. So I guess they've done a count, but it's not out yet on how many homeless are actually in Merritt. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Charney.
I attended the Emerging Executive Committee, and Krista Menard did a fantastic presentation, and I applaud her for all of her hard work that she does. I also attended the UBCM Housing Summit held in Vancouver. It was an excellent summit, and I just wanted to go through just a quick synopsis of it. And one thing we did talk about in budgeting was digital permitting. And it seems that every community there is now heading towards digital permitting, just an overhauling of their whole permitting process. And E-Plan is one example of digital permitting. 80% of First Nations not living on reserves, and on the reserves there's a 40% deficit of housing. So this really affects the impact on surrounding communities. There is not enough middle housing in BC. Middle housing is your fourplexes, triplexes, townhouses, very small apartments. And I think that's what the BC government is pushing towards, is that middle housing, missing middle housing. Smaller communities have less funding and fewer staff to secure grants for housing. For example, Port Hardy, they just don't have money to have someone apply for these grants that has the expertise to fill the grants in, therefore they don't get grants. And, it's a sticky wicket, and I think we're very lucky to have a grant writer and B, the staff that we do have. Communities don't have public input at the start of addressing housing, i.e. in zoning. We have the public meeting after we have gone through the process so far. Then the public is brought in. By then, a lot of the decisions have been made. So it was a suggestion that maybe communities start bringing the public in earlier in the process of rezoning so that they're more aware of what's going on, and it might have an impact on how we rezone, etc. The provincial government's priorities: more affordable rental housing, reduce the time and cost associated with the approval process, and gentle densification. I got quite an earful yesterday with this gentle densification. If Merritt ever goes that way, I'm out. We as a group, especially older people like we have expected a single family housing unit. Well, those are changing. Things are changing, and a lot of the communities have now taken a single family home and put 4 to 6 houses on there. And the person that's beside them is a single family home, and right beside them now they have a sixplex. And so they're saying, when I bought, this was a single family home. It was zoned for single family home. Now you're putting this in beside me. So communities, I think, have to approach this, be very sensitive as to how it's going to affect people, but also keep in mind that we are lacking ground for housing. The provincial government is allowing secondary suites in every community, allowing up to 4 units on a single-family detached lot, depending on the size and type of lot, and it can be increased depending on the size and type of lot. More density in areas that are well served by transit. So if the transit is close by, they're really trying to increase the density there. Communities can apply for funding for housing through the Growing Community Fund, which we did receive money for, and the Housing Accelerator Fund. And I mentioned to Sean that there is a webinar on April 13th with regards to this Housing Accelerator Fund, and it's from 1 to 2. So it was a great conference, and I appreciate the council and staff sending me to that, and I learned a lot. And I hope you did notice that there were pictures in your presentation. Yes. Wasn't that good? Yeah, great. Yes, I was quite proud of myself when I did that.
Yes.
So yes, pat myself on the back. So that's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation and representing us down at the conference. Appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And just so you know, the densification issue has been live since about 2013, because we knew at some point in time we couldn't go out, so we had to build up. Mm-hmm. So that's been the densification thing for quite some time.
Yeah, well, I got an earful yesterday.
Councillor, let me push the button. Councillor Etchart.
I think it's already been mentioned. Most of us attended the welcome tea, so it was nice to meet a lot of new residents, which was great, and thanks to the library for hosting that. And the Arts Council had an event on the Friday, which they often do, so it's nice to see different artisans and residents attend. And Coffee with a Cop, it's always nice to see if people can kind of go and ask questions to see what's happening out there. But this one didn't have as many people, I don't think. But it's always nice to see things like that, and rather than carry on, it's just nice to see lots of nice things happening, and that was great.
Thank you. Councillor Egan.
Thank you. I went to the T2 and it was great. I haven't been to the library in a long time, and it was really great to see what was going on there. It was very well attended. I've forgotten how large actually our library is, because you think about just being that little bit. I really love the little train that goes around, and I mean, it was great. The other thing that I did, actually much to the incentive of my son, because I'm encouraging him to come out to all of our events as well, and he's very politically minded. And he said, well, come on, Mom, he says, because I wanted him to come down to Collettville because I'd been asked to go down and visit some people that had some issues regarding housing. And I shared my concerns with the people that we visited. However, I just see that there's more that the council can do in return in regards to transparency of some of the decisions that are made with planning and housing, and making sure that people actually understand what's happening in their neighborhood. I'm not sure that anything can be corrected in that particular area, but I'm sure that they'll be out to let us know what their feelings are and what their neighbors' feelings are at the open house that we have after budget. And then I went to visit some other people that have been affected on Pine Street. And man, when you actually visit those people that have, they had bought those houses and spent their life savings, they're retired, and then they see it all wash away. they've put all this hard work in, and now they're at an age where they can't really do that work anymore. It's very heartbreaking, and I completely sympathize with them. I don't know what to do. I mean, because we are all at our wits' end, knowing that we can't help everybody. City can't help everybody. We're doing our best. We all know we're doing our best. But I just, I encourage them to come out again to the open house to let everybody know where they are at their recovery and where we can try and help in their future. And then regarding my son again, he came home on Sunday and he said, or Saturday, and he says, Mom, he says, I should have come and got you before I heard there was this little rally at the hospital. He said, you should have been there. And I said, well, I would have had I known about it. But he said, I met Dr. Holmes, and he says, he knows our family, and he said, he told me everything about the whole community, and he said, what a state our healthcare is in. Much about the centralized hospital situation that the provincial government has put us in. And so we really need to all band together and make a voice, get up to that hospital, and let's get our hospital back. Let's get doctors working. Let's get nurses working. Anyways, that's my feeling.
Councillor Newman.
I'm going to be really short because my voice is not lasting too long tonight. So the newcomers tea, yes, great. I did 2 webinars on Wednesday, March 29th. One was for the Truth and Reconciliation through Women Transforming Cities, and the other one was collaborative governance, and it was along the same lines as well. There is a follow-up to the Women Transforming Cities for municipalities in April. It's last week during we're at Silga. So unfortunately, I let them know that, and I will probably step out during Silga to take it. It's about an hour call. But it was all about what calls to action there are for municipalities, which Lacey, who was in here earlier, has brought up and has a lot more knowledge than I do, but was definitely worth attending. And same with the collaborative governance. There was quite a few of the people from the coast and First Nations down there, representatives, and it was about building relationships and collaborations, which was really good. And then I guess Adam touched base on the art gallery, so that is good. Or sorry, Councillor Etchert. And that's it for myself this week.
Thank you. Did all that stuff as well, and I actually won the flowers at the tea, so my wife now has possession of those. Just a couple of things. We all went skydiving. Really had a great time with you all. Mm-hmm. I look amazing in that big picture. I'm going to use that as my campaign photo the next time. I look amazing. Claire looks stunning. Manuel looks like a movie star. It's amazing. I'm so glad we went skydiving. I'm just so excited about that. Had to push Adam out the plane, but it was all right. So anyway, just a little bit of a rah-rah thing. The meeting or the rally at the hospital was not sent to council. We had no idea it was happening. Since then, I have had a call from the organizers. They expect us all to be there, or would like us all to be there this coming Saturday at the Central Park because they feel the hospital is too small for the amount of people that can be showing up. So it's by the RCMP station in that parking lot from 2 till 2:45. So please wear your flight gear and your parachutes so we can be prepared. I'm hoping that we will get a lot of people out there. It's something that we need to support. Talking about what's happening on Pine, and I'm going to put this out here right now. I'm dealing with a lady named Jennifer Biddlecombe who lost her home. We're waiting for the funding to buy her out. We can't get it. Her husband is in the middle of a fight for his life with liver cancer, and we have been able to sit across from the table and tell her there's absolutely nothing we can do for you at this point in time. So I have contacted Councillor Egan. We are going to arrange a fundraising dinner, steak dinner, to help. And I encourage everybody that hears my voice tonight to buy a ticket. We are going to, there is a GoFundMe out there for Everett at this point. I cannot sit as a mayor and a human being and not offer some help to somebody. I've never had a more discouraging moment in my life when I had to look her in the eyes and say, you've lost your home, you are in a fight for your life, and see ya. I can't do that. So we are going to move on a lot of other fronts to help them raise some funds. It doesn't sound like a lot, it's $50,000, but for them it's a lot. They've lost everything. They can't be bought out. So I'm hoping that we'll, this fundraising dinner will get people to do more fundraising in the community as well and try and get as much as we can. I'm going to get this out on Global and everywhere else, try to get this information out to help get this family back on their feet. So Dana and I will meet with Dana. We'll get the tickets printed up and the date set, and I'll let everybody know when that is, because it's not set yet, because I've been waiting for the live donor clinic that they've been going to see to, so they could set the time for me. So we're going to be moving on that, and I'm going to be, if you have anyone that has any way of raising funds, please tap them on the shoulders. So that is it for me. Councillor Etchart.
Have they been approached by the Hell or High Water fundraiser that happened last year?
Again, Councillor Etchart, they have been very quiet about this. Mr. Biddlecombe has been very, he's a proud man, but he's sick, and we have, with a lot of phone calls, we've finally been able to get him to say, yeah, I need some help. So that's where we're going. So right now, any avenue is open, and that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with the steak dinner and try and get any kind of funding we can get, and approach. I'm going to approach every single person I can to try and help with this. So that's something we may look at.
And that is a great thing if we can get behind that and help people. And even better would be if that fundraiser could maybe, be contacted to help them, because that's primarily what it was for the worst affected people. But of course, that wasn't our fundraiser, but I know we were in support. Well, I should say former council was in support of it. And I think everybody here would be as well.
I'll be making a phone call tomorrow.
Thank you.
I will. Information items. Anybody want to address any of the information items? Councilor Newman?
No, sorry, just a question of your report, if you don't mind. I'm just curious as to who the organizers are for the rally on Saturday.
My understanding so far, the one organizer that I've dealt with is Georgina Clement.
And these are so residents.
Citizens.
It's not a interior.
No, this is totally a citizen-based deal.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you.
is totally citizen-based. Just so you know, I'm going to bring you up to date. Most of you saw that I resent the Ralston letter. Still had absolutely no response back. Sent it to the Premier and the Minister. Hopefully we get some information back on that. On the Minister Dick's letter, I sent that, but I also had a phone call with him tonight, or I'm supposed to. He kind of stood me up, so I'm assuming I'll get it tomorrow regarding Dr. Granger. So we'll be talking about that at some point. I have some questions for him. We have the Canadian Red Cross release in there, which I think is great for a lot of people. That kind of came out of nowhere and can kind of help a lot of people, so it's nice to see. And the Chamber of Commerce letter. Anybody else have anything to address on that? Excellent. Oh, sorry. CEO Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wanted to provide a few CEO updates as well. I think that it's out in the community now. April 17th is what we've got scheduled for paving Boat Street now that plants are reopening. So you will see the temporary repair work. Really want to stress to everybody that hears it so that we're not vilified when the actual full program comes through. This is temporary repair work. It is not going to be a perfect job, but it's going to be a heck of a lot better than what's there now, with the understanding that council will have a proposal on the table that is going to allow for the long-term doing the underground works as well as the road section as part of the budget consideration for this year. Also want to flag that there are two upcoming budget sessions that the public are welcome and invited to attend. In particular, that is the 18th, Tuesday the 18th, at 6 o'clock, as well as the open house that will be at the Civic Center on the 19th, also at 6 o'clock. So those two meetings, wants to make sure that one is a council deliberation, but open to the public. The second one is an open house on the 19th. 18th, 19th, back to back, stress you guys out and keep you busy. Then the last, there's been lots of questions lately around what are we looking like coming into Freshette. So I'll provide a little bit of an update as to where we're at. The standard disclaimer that always applies, we have no idea what rain is going to look like, so we can look at snow and make some pretty good predictions from there, but rain always adds in a variable that can change things, so we need to be wary. But we do want residents to know that we're in good touch with the province as to what the operation of the Nicola Lake Dam is going to look like over the course of this year. Happy to say that we're basically as average or median as you can be for snowpacks this year. It's a really happy place to come into a year. This is where you want to be to hopefully avoid floods and drought on both sides. So with that, we're at about 95% of our snowpack on the watershed that would be feeding the Nicola River system, and we're maybe about 105% of what would feed the Coldwater River system. And so pretty happy coming in right now that levels are good, but we'll keep you updated on that as we know it's of importance to our residents. We do have sand available at the Public Works Yard, and we've got sandbags on the way for when that time comes if people are going to need or want to protect their properties. With that, that's what I had for you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. So with that, we'll move into a closed session. I have a recommendation that the meeting be closed to the press and public under Section 91E of the Community Charter, the acquisition under disposition or expropriation of land or improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could be reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. Councillor Etchart, I need a seconder. Councillor Charney, all those in favor? Opposed?
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. So let's take 4 or 5 minutes and we'll go. If anybody needs to go to the washroom or anything.